everybody? Jim here. Welcome back for another edition of SHOREVIEWKEN, where today we are taking a look at an awesome game indeed. It is Batman, and we have a very special guest reviewer today. So everyone prepare yourselves, because here comes Mike Tindo.
Here comes a new challenger!
Oh boy.
What?
You're taking a real risk here.
What are you talking about?
Doing a collaboration with Kid SHOREVIEWKEN?
Oh, actually he rebranded. His channel is now called Mad Panic Gaming.
Even more reason to worry.
Wait, why? I'm so lost.
Guys, relax. I asked for this.
You know his viewers probably hate cringy skits, right?
Oh yeah, that might be an issue, huh?
You better move on to the review fast before they figure out how the unsubscribe button works.
Fair point. Okay, here we go. Batman on the Nintendo Entertainment... Wait a second. This is...
Yeah, that's right. Let him have it. Zoom in on the face, and...
Batman on the Sega Genesis?
Growing up as a Nintendo loyalist, Sunsoft's Batman was a go-to action platformer with killer tunes, impressive graphics, and bat-tastic fun, based on the Tim Burton Batman film from 1989. But now, all these years after spreading my console wings and exploring other consoles I never owned as a kid, I've come across a plethora of licensed games that were on other 8 and 16-bit systems that I had no clue existed. One such example is today's game, Batman on the Sega Genesis. How does it fare compared to the more famous 8-bit version? Pressing start, we're given the choice to begin the game or go into the options. Thankfully, Sunsoft allowed us to bump the stock of lives up to 7, which is good because you're going to need them. I completed the game on normal, and it took me about 2 hours total with one game over, so the challenge to bump up to hard is there for advanced players. Now, unlike the NES Batman, there's very few cutscenes in this game. On the NES version, there's cutscenes similar to the Ninja Gaiden games, but here, we just start the level right away. This version of the game is a bit more faithful to the movie, like Stage 2 when Batman knocks Jack Napier into the toxic goo to turn him into the Joker. But sadly, we never get to see this transformation via a cutscene. Batman's got a bit of a flat-throwing punch that doesn't have the impact of the NES game's Bat Fist, but he has some additional smooth moves thanks to advanced jump mechanics, and honestly, these kind of break the boss fights in many ways. Pressing the jump button, then pressing again will send Batman into a tuck and roll jump. You can use this like a jump attack in a Mario game and hit the back of an enemy to hurt them. This makes boss fights way easier. Batman also has a duck and kick move that helps with sliding opponents. Holding down the attack button will supposedly block, but I was never able to connect successfully with this defense mechanism. Stage 2 has this spot where the pipe bursts and you're supposed to grapple onto what's left of the pipe, but I initially had a lot of trouble with it for some reason. Pressing up and the grapple whips you up to the higher ground, and you'll need to use this to ascend to platforms. Batman can also drop down by pressing down and the jump button, but keep in mind that when the screen scrolls, you can't go backwards, which can cause you to miss certain power-ups. However, there's a glitch in one of the stages that allows you to drop back down and get infinite 1-ups, which definitely helped me finish the game without losing all my continues. Yes, there's limited continues, so if you run out, that's game over. Aside from the hand-to-hand combat levels with various goons that, I don't know, they look like they're pulling out a pen to ask for an autograph, you'll also come across gun-blasting baddies and these hopping dudes. Speaking of hopping, Batman will be able to hop into the Batmobile and Batjet, or Batwing? Batplane? I don't know, I'm not sure. I think it's just the Batwing in this movie, so we'll go with that. The Batmobile levels feel nice and tight control-wise, and the addition of collecting and using homing missiles really helps with the stronger vehicles. The Batwing level is rough to get through, as your hitbox increases immensely when you try to steer up or down. Half my deaths were caused in this level just by trying to dodge the attacks of the helicopters. There's a total of 6 stages, with 2 of them, stages 4 and 6, being comprised of 2 sections. You'll go from Gotham streets to the Axis Chemical Factory, then to the Flugelheim Museum, before taking to the streets again in a 2-part stage. Stage 5 is the flying mission, before finishing the game with the final 2-part stage at the Cathedral. There's a lot less cybernetic sci-fi stuff than the NES game, and most bosses reflect this as well. From beefed up henchmen to swordsmen and more, the bosses are much more down to earth here. Graphically, this game reflects the darker tone of the movie. Shadows fill the streets and skies, and while I think the background animation on the NES game was more impressive overall, This game is no slouch in that department. I especially dig the animated cutscene where Batman escapes with Vicky Vale and he flies right at you like a Ninja Turtle through time. Get it? It's a reference to another licensed game. Get it? I'm so sorry, Jim. I absolutely love the soundtrack on this game. It's provided by Sunsoft's legendary Naoki Kodaka. It's got mostly brand new tunes separate from the NES game, aside from a jingle or two. From the smoky prologue tune to the somber booming epilogue and staff roll, this game fully utilizes the Sega Genesis's YM2612 FM-based sound chip to craft some real bops. Here's a few of my favorites. You really can't go wrong with Sunsoft's Batman on the Sega Genesis. The combat takes a bit to get used to, but this one is a quick little challenge that will get you doing the Batoozy. Way better than the arcade game of the same name, but a bit lacking compared to the platforming and combat thrills of the NES version. This iteration sits somewhere in between the two. With a 1-2 punch of killer tunes and quarter-munching vibes, Batman is one of the better licensed games on the Sega Genesis.
A huge shout out and thank you goes out to Mike Tindo for joining me for today's review. I've been enjoying his videos for over a decade now, and it's great to finally have him on the channel. And I have to also thank him for choosing a game that I hadn't really given much attention to before now. The reason being is that I'm a big fan of Batman on the NES. It's actually one of my favorite platformers, and if there was another Batman game that wasn't going to be as good, I just wasn't interested. But there's a lesson there about not being biased, because while I don't think it holds a candle to its NES counterpart, I really enjoyed playing through Genesis Batman. The thing that impressed me most, though, wasn't the gameplay, though that too is good, and I'll talk more about that in a bit, but man, does this game have an awesome soundtrack. I should have expected as much, considering that Sunsoft games always had great music, but this seriously competes with the soundtrack of the NES game, and is actually one of the better soundtracks on the Genesis. It really impressed me. I can't say the same for the visuals, though. They're not bad, mind you. They do closer match the dark and moody tones of the film, but I much prefer the vibrant colors of the NES game, even if it's more reminiscent of Batman Forever than it is '89 Batman. Now to the gameplay, which is solid and fun. It's kind of similar to the NES game in that it's an action platformer, but definitely leans more into beat-em-up territory. The controls are responsive, and the challenge minus the Batwing stage is fair, but yeah, I definitely agree with Mike on this one. The Batwing stage was pretty frustrating. The Batmobile stage, on the other hand, was really cool. It controlled great and wasn't nearly as frustrating. The one thing that I thought was really weak, though, the boss fights. Once you figure out the jump attack, or if you've saved up enough batarangs, the bosses are pushovers, sometimes literally. Even the Joker can be steamrolled in a matter of seconds. Other than that though, a fun game indeed that makes good use of the license and has a killer soundtrack. So thank you again to Mike Tindo for joining me today. Definitely go and have a look at his channel for a whole lot of retro gaming goodness. Thanks for watching everyone, and we'll see you next time on SHOREVIEWKEN.